Hello and welcome, everybody. Sorry for the short delay. We've had our guest frozen upside down in the dark. So we've got him sorted now, thankfully. I'd like to welcome Mark Knight, the founder and host of the blog site Wakey Wakey, which has a lot of great information on there if you haven't been there yet. It's been around for 10 years nearly, with Mark having written 5 books already, and lately some videos. And one of the things that Mark put out that caught my attention was a Flat Earth series of videos, which were fascinating. Welcome, Mark.
Welcome. Good to be here.
Thank you for joining me. This is awesome. Before we even get started into the kinds of things you've been researching and talking about, I love hearing people's stories, what sets them down these roads to start with. So, I mean, what I do know about you is you're living off-grid up a mountain somewhere. That's presumably by choice. So what was the catalyst for the Wakey Wakey blog?
There's a few, really. I had sort of a normal job in London, a normal sort of life. Always knew something different was going on. And I went traveling, and I had some money, and I went traveling, living out of a bag. And I bumped into some mystics and did some very long retreats, some very long fasts. And I bumped into some shaman, and I spent some time with ayahuasca and the Wachuma medicine. And I spent some time with some monks and some yogis. And there was no way back from that, really. And all through these 4 or 5 years, I was reading tons of books, a lot of conspiracy, how the system works, how the banks work. And after this sort of five-year synchronistic journey, I came back to the Western world, and I was like, this isn't for me. This is kind of synthetic and toxic. And I sort of lived up a mountain and then moved to another mountain. And sort of here I am.
And the first book you wrote, Wakey Wakey, do you want to tell everyone what that's about?
This was, I had a lot of questions, and the book's a series of about 300 questions looking at the media, the pharmaceutical industry, the governments, sort of societal norms, things we do every day in the Western world that we think are normal, that are actually really weird when we really break them down. So looking at groupthink and societal norms, really. And this was a free ebook. I put this online free. It took me about a year to piece together.
Sorry, I'm in a public space. I'm in a kitchen, so there's going to be people coming and going through.
That's fine.
You said, wow, so 300 questions of questioning the things that we just take for granted as normal because we just don't question them or think about them. And did you provide answers? And that
I'm
the answers
providing
you had
concepts.
found, or did you pose the questions?
I didn't really give absolute answers. I was looking at concepts and the reasons why these norms are very strange, like going to the doctors and just taking some tablets he gives you. Just loads of questions like this. Why do we just have the television on and we're walking around the house because we want company? All these sort of very strange little norms. And this sort of led me into sort of secret societies, because I started looking at what's behind things, and I come across secret societies and mysticism. And then funny enough, through synchronicity, that's something I fell into personally. So I got a sort of first-hand look at some things that go on within the mystic realms, within the mystic groups.
That book was in 2009, and then came Trinity of Wisdom.
Yeah.
What's that one about?
I sort of bumbled into a mystery school in Guatemala, as one does. And I did sort of a 1.5 year process there, sort of on and off, where there was a lot of Hermetic Kabbalah, a lot of practical things we were doing. And then there was like a 50-day silent fast. So they basically put a lot of Kabbalistic puzzles into you, and then they say, right, silent fast for 50 days. So these sort of Kabbalistic puzzles fester, and they sort of take you somewhere. It's really another way to get to non-duality. And then they sent me to a secret person up a volcano somewhere, and I did another similar process.
And what did you get out of these processes?
A lot of inner change, a lot of inner transformation, a lot of esoteric knowledge, a lot more sensitivity to energy, a lot more sensitivity to what people are feeling, and a capability to sort of feel what's going on and look at the big picture more. Because spending a lot of time in solitude, silence, you're not in the noise of people's stories. You can start looking at evolutionary trajectories a little bit more and where humanity's going, and start to have more of a broader view of things. I think they're the main things I got.
You're going to have to tell me how to pronounce the next one. The ROM. Kaylin?
Oh, this is ROM stands for Re-Emergence of Man. It just doesn't fit on the bit of the blog. This was I was working up a mountain, working with the Wachuma cactus, which is a shamanic medicine, a sacred teacher plant, whatever labels you want to give it, really. And one time I was using it creatively. I was using it to get creative ideas. And one time I had like an hour experience where I was inside this story with the characters within the environment. And it was like raining, this story. And I had a notepad and I was trying to catch the rain, so to speak. So I sort of plucked this story out of the ether and I spent the next 5 weeks writing it nonstop. And this is sort of a message against transhumanism. So I did a big study of what's going on at Harvard and Stanford and Google and MIT, what they're doing with transhumanism, artificial intelligence. They want to merge man with tech. And the story is really a message against this. It's a bit like a futuristic 1984 based about 30 years from now.
Sounds fascinating. I think I'm going to have to read that one. I haven't read it yet. And then how do you pronounce the next one?
Nurielm.
Nurielm. Okay.
Yep. This is like 10 short stories. Again, this was... Here comes my cat. Go away, Tara. This was based on, again, working with Wachuma cactus, and I had some concepts. And instead of writing dry essays or dry articles, I wrapped some stories around some concepts. So it's sort of conceptual fiction, and there's like 10 stories. Yeah, short stories, and there'll be something for everyone there. They've all got a sort of ethical, activism, shamanic, mystic theme running through them. I can't hear you there, Lisa. I can see your mouth moving.
Yeah, my bad. I was muted. One of the, as I said in the intro, that one of the things that caught my attention on your blog was your journey through the flat Earth information. And you have to look at, for me, I have to look at this particular conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
And seeing it as, I mean, I've never seen anything quite like it explode on the scene.
It's a big one.
It's huge, and it's got, I mean, when you look at how many videos, how many articles, how many YouTube channels, blogs, commentators have stepped in on this subject, for me, it's like I'm automatically suspicious.
For sure.
Because nothing has exploded like this. And
yes.
it has to be getting pushed.
There is a push. I agree.
So why? And why now? I do think one of the things that we were talking about on one of the regular shows that I do, the One People show, is that when it comes to NASA and cycles, that we know that they have to come clean. They have to come clean every so often.
Yeah.
And that if embedded in this article or this subject matter, this conspiracy theory is the revealing of truth, but it's being done in such a way that, for the most part, it'll get written off. because the flat Earth conversation has encompassed so many things. The questioning of satellites, the questioning of NASA, the questioning of the moon landings, the questioning of the ISS, anything to do with any of the space agencies in general. Even GPS. I mean, there's just so much that has come
about
up.
200 subjects within the one subject, easily.
Exactly. So from the powers that were perspective, there has to be it's either being allowed or it's actually being supported to come out. So from their perspective, why do you think that's happening, and why do you think it's happening now?
I think it's possible that they're putting it out now, but I am more 60%, let's say, that it's being revealed that they're going to try and control it. And the way they're going to try and control it is two ways. They'll have some agents in there trying to create division, which I don't know if you saw the last week, there's been massive division within the flat Earth community.
Oh, that has been since I've been looking into it.
Oh, it's been chaos, carnage. Another way they'll do it with internet traffic. So they'll pick one or two or a few people, and they'll put say someone types in flat Earth to Google, they'll push everyone to a certain video, or they'll push everyone to a certain forum. This is a way they'll do it. They'll push newbies, people who are, oh wow, I'm going to type flat Earth into the internet, and they're going to push people to go to a certain video. So people will be psyops without knowing it. So maybe my videos are. We just don't know at this juncture. It's very early days.
What do you see? You just said in the last week or two, it's really, the division's getting ridiculous. What are you seeing there?
I, at the moment, don't have enough evidence to call anyone like a shill or an agent, but there's been a lot of people 100% calling other people shills. But there has been some people acting a little bit shilly, but for me, that's not enough to point fingers. And I'm not that bothered. I'll just do my own work and put it on my website, and do my own work and put it on my website. I'm not really into the soap opera or the politics, because it's the way I live my life. I live my life high altitude in a mountain, quite remote. And that's the sort of way I do my work as well.
So what got you started?
It was actually, I've known Eric DeBay for a few years. We have a few chats here and there. And he told me what he was working on. And I said, you're completely crazy. You've either been got to or you've gone crazy. And he sent me his book. And I thought this would be fun to debunk. And a week later, I was like, it's a bit of a tougher one. So I rolled up the sleeves and I was like, right, I'm going to debunk it this week. And then it was like a month later, and all I could debunk was the ball Earth. And I've probably done 3,000 hours research now. And it's, the more I look at it, the more the ball Earth theory looks like a train wreck of nonsense.
Is there any one specific point that tipped you over the edge? Like, there's just no reconciling it? Yeah,
it's very hard to reconcile it. I mean, I'm always open to be wrong. I'm always open to be corrected. I'm not one of these guys that builds a castle and says, rah, I'm happy to be corrected wrong. But I suppose I got to 80% flat Earth quite easily. Well, it took a couple of months. But then it was like the sun and the moon and the stars. They were the tough nuts to crack for me. And once I clocked, because in the southern hemisphere, the stars work a little bit different, shall we say. And once I got my head around that, I was like, wow, there's no way back. It was the stars, really, that was the final one.
So do you have a theory on as to the globular model was even put forward?
Do I have a theory on why it was put forward?
Well, I don't know, a flat plane.
Sorry, Lisa, I didn't quite catch all of that.
Well, not that long ago, we were on a flat plane. And then that changed to the globe. So do you have a theory as to why that may have changed?
Well, we can find some facts there. I mean, Newton, it was really, 1600s. It was from Newton and his gravity book. And Newton was he was an occultist and a magician, an alchemist, and he was pretty much a Freemason as well. So something was going on there. It's maybe obviously they're trying to hide something. There's something being hidden, whether that's divinity or other land or something that happens in our stars on a cyclic epoch, era. But they're trying to hide something, and it's like a big propaganda project. And we don't know what they're hiding yet. No one's got past Antarctica. No one really knows how far the stars are away, but they're probably something between 3,000 and 8,000 miles. They're probably not that far away.
There's several different models in the flat Earth community.
Yes.
Which one do you subscribe to?
There were a lot of people talking about there's a lot of science boys in there, and they're playing around with a lot of the electromagnetics, electric universe theory, and that fits really well. There's a lot of people talking about an infinite plane, so behind Antarctica it's infinite. There's people talking about the dome. At the moment, I do believe I'm only 90% that there's a ceiling or a dome, because meteorites have to come from somewhere. And I'm more likely to believe there's other land than an infinite plane. And I'm more likely to believe there's some creative intelligence than pure hard science electromagnetism. But with these things, I'm not 100%. I'm like 80, 90. I'm always open unless I know for sure.
So what are your thoughts then on extraterrestrial?
This is a big hoax. The alien thing's a massive hoax, I believe. But obviously other entities exist, so interdimensional entities, interdimensional intelligence, this exists. Evocation magic, this exists. But the whole 3D physical aliens, I believe this is a massive hoax.
So how do you tell people that who absolutely positively believe that they've had an experience with one?
Well, I've done some study on this. I believe it's a DMT release. It's like an interdimensional thing. So some DMT gets released in the pineal gland, and some sort of entity can come into this frequency. So they believe they've had an experience, and they have, but it's interdimensional.
Interdimensional as opposed to extraterrestrial.
Yeah, if we study a lot of abduction cases, they do seem to be more of like a interdimensional experience, some sort of DMT release.
Because one of the conversations I had was on a kind of infinite plane concept.
Yeah.
You could in fact have other land masses where potentially these other beings could come from.
Sure.
And have the technology to travel to this one.
Yeah, I can't rule this out for sure. I did an article about other lands. I was studying some ancient Buddhist texts, and a lot of them talk about Mount Meru in the middle and 4 continents. Some researchers believe this is like Asia, Europe, Africa, But I looked into it a bit more, and some of the texts say humans only live on 1 continent. So I've got an article on my site talking about other lands from an ancient Tibetan Buddhist perspective. But this is also in Thai Buddhism and Chinese Buddhism. You can find this sort of notion of other lands.
Does that mean that what we know of as Earth is just one of the 4 corners? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that is the case, Lisa. I'm saying I got some information together and I presented that as a concept that is something I cannot rule out. Yeah. Yeah. Because there's another key to the other land theory. There's like another thing I was looking at on Earth. 140,000 children go missing a year, and it's like, okay, maybe they grabbed 5, 10,000, maybe 10,000 go missing. Where do the other 100,000 children go? So maybe it's a crazy concept. Maybe some humans are being moved to other land. We just don't know. We just don't know enough at the moment.
Well, that puts a different spin on it.
Yeah.
I mean, most conspiracy circles will suggest that they're being abducted and sacrificed and what have you.
Possible. Some people believe there's other realities above and below, so it's like stacked, layered. There's many theories out there.
I just want sidetrack for a second. There's a chat room on my website, and there's some people in there. So I just wanted to let them know that if they have any questions for Mark, by all means, type them in, and I'll pass them on.
Yeah, sure.
So how are you? I know you're currently, we're just going to go off track for a second, more personal, but you're living, as you said, up a mountain in the kind of off the grid. Everything's hanging by a thread. How are you spending your days right now? Is it just in research and writing and your own personal journey?
Well, recently I just finished a book like a few days ago. As I did a 2-month study of the moon from a flat Earth perspective, and I did a 100-page book. I've got good reception so far.
Just read it last night.
So I was for a week, I was sort of sleeping, writing. Then, I'm hungry, I better eat, sleeping, writing, and I got into this sort of spin. I didn't even know if it was daytime or nighttime. But normally I tend to work the land in the morning, I've got mini projects on the land. And then in the afternoon, I like to do some research, read or write, and then chill out in the evening. And sometimes obviously I have to go to the town and do some chores, maybe go for a swim in the sea.
Sounds like what life should be about.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so I did read the book last night.
The Moon Book.
And the Moon Book, yeah, because it's when you're having this conversation with people, it's the big question. Explain the moon then. How does that work? How do eclipses work? How do we make it all fit? And I was aware of an original legend here in Australia about the time before the moon.
Yeah.
How did that fit in? And the premise that you put forward in that book is pretty out there and kind of amazing. The idea that it is essentially an old sun.
Yeah.
Is what it boils down to, right? It's the previous sun. And I thought that was interesting in the sense that so many ancient cultures refer to these cycles of suns, the first sun, the second sun, the third sun, and how that fits in very, very nicely. But it does tend to, or it's in danger of being labelled fear porn, for one, because
totally.
Totally, you walk away from that thinking, okay, well, we're right in the midst of the initial stages of the next cataclysm.
Yeah. Some people could think that.
We have seen our sun change colour.
Yeah.
We've seen some anomalies with the second sun. There are people who have photographed and videoed images, shapes coming from the sun. There's certainly some odd behaviour. And
the chemtrails seem to be blocking the sun, don't they?
Yeah, how do they play in your view?
All I've said in my video, and I don't even think I put it in the book, in the Galactic Center Rift video, which is related to the Moon Book, I did say that chemtrails could be the delaying of something, because they just seem to be blocking the sun.
They serve a purpose, and with the suggestions as to what that is. Everything from trying to kill us off to trying to create a veil so that we can't see certain things, to blocking the sun's energy so that we don't benefit from the beneficial aspects of the sun. I mean, the list goes on.
I don't think they're trying to damage humans, because they do a lot of chemtrails in non-populous areas. I think we can rule that one out. Because why would they do lots of chemtrails?
Well, are they in farming areas? They're in farming areas.
Sure, possible. But if they wanted to get to humans through the food or water, they could do it a much simpler and cheaper way than flying planes all around the world, spraying. It just doesn't seem logical to me that they would do that to get to humans, because they could get to humans tons of other ways.
So when it comes to the moon, And your premise,
Yeah.
without going into fear mongering, just having a look at it and putting it out there, and also trying to tie it in with a whole bunch of other information.
Yeah.
If we are at the end of a cycle, at the end of the life cycle of this particular sun, what you're saying is throughout history, throughout these legends, this time is cataclysmic.
I'm not saying now is cataclysmic. I'm just piecing together a lot of ancient myth with...
Yeah, no, but in the past, these cycles have ended in cataclysm.
Yeah, for sure. There's tons of myth all around the world.
So what would make this one different?
What would make
this one different? Or are we just being naively hopeful that this one would be different?
I think it would just, if the cataclysms are cyclic, it'd just be another one the same as the others. Another big cataclysm. I'm not saying one's coming. I'm not dishing out any fear porn. What I've done in my recent work, I've pieced together a flat Earth perspective. Because when we look at the ancient myth and the stars and the galactic center and the moon from a flat Earth perspective, we can re-look at all the myths with new eyes. And I've pieced a lot of this together from a different perspective. And it does look like our sky changes every, I don't know, could be every 12,000 years, I don't know. Because there's myth all around the world of a new sun, another sun. There's myth all around the world of there being no moon in the sky. There's myths of the stars falling, 2 suns in the sky. And you can find this everywhere.
So just the way the myths sort of play out is that it starts with 2 suns starting to appear and then the old one dies off.
This is one of the myths. Another one, which I did a 1-hour documentary on YouTube about, is where, and this sounds really crazy, is where what we call galactic center in the sky, we think is 12 trillion miles away. But in the flat Earth model, this is like, I don't know, 4,000 to 8,000 miles away. And there's myth all around the world of this. They call it the Dark Rift or the Great Rift or the Road to the Underworld. They have many different names for it, but they never called it Galactic Center. There's a lot of myth of this rift opening like a scroll, like it just opens up and plop, out comes a new sun. And yeah, it's crazy, but these myths are written and they exist.
Just in time for the old one to die.
I don't think in any cataclysm everyone's died. I think it's just been a kind of reset.
No, I mean the old sun.
And yeah, the old sun dies, and possibly the moon is an old sun. As I put in the book, the moon is the same size as the sun. It's the same distance away as the sun. This is under a flat Earth model for any listeners who are new to the flat Earth model. This is probably going to sound really crazy because the flat Earth is crazy enough. So the moon's the same size as the sun in the flat Earth model. It's about 30 miles wide, about 3,000 miles away. They both go pretty much at the same speed. The moon's like an hour slower in a 24-hour period. So the moon's sort of lost its power. It's an old malfunctioning sun in this. It's a thesis. I want to make it clear that what I've written in the last couple of chapters is a thesis. I'm piecing together a jigsaw. I'm not one of these guys who goes, oh, this is what's happening. I'm saying this is a thesis and it's some information I've pieced together. I'd like other people to look at it and, try and debunk it. Because I first did this article about the Dark Rift in December 2014. It's had over 10,000 views and no one's debunked it. No one's debunked it.
One of the women in the chat room has just shared a series of visions that she's been having, and this is familiar to me. I've heard this from a number of people. That she's saying that I've had some telling dreams over the past few years. One theme is the huge wave, another is the stars falling and everybody celebrating, and another was the moon explodes and falls into bits.
Wow.
I've heard literally those same 3 things many times.
Yeah, on one of the 50-day meditations I did, I had a lot of visions of massive waves, but a big feeling of bliss, and there was a lot of humor in these dreams and visions. I've also had a lot of visions of massive waves.
And you're probably aware of the YouTube channel Crow 777. He says the light from the moon is coming from within, and you say something similar. You say it self-illuminates and deluminates.
Yes.
Do you want to explain that?
Well, when you look at the phases under the flat Earth model, and you look at the moon, it cannot be lit from the sun. There's many, many reasons, and the book's free. Just download it. The moonlight just is very different to sunlight. It's damp. It's blue. It's silver. It does different things with plants and animals. It just isn't sunlight. There's even scientific things I put in the book from the 1950s to do with frequency and wavelength. It's just not sunlight. Also, with the way the sun and the moon are on the flat Earth, it's just not possible. So the moon self-illuminates. It self-illuminates and it self-deluminates. And this is something I've put into one big chapter. So I also believe, sorry.
No, it's almost like an internal globe is sort of shining just one face and spinning.
I do know that gentleman's theory, and I'm not on board with there's something in it moving around. I have read that theory, and I'm not on board with it.
Well, what do you mean by, or explain the deluminates to create the phases then?
Well, it's losing. It's just losing power, because what it is, when it's deluminating, it's really near the sun. When it's got its most power is when it's furthest away from the sun. It's like when it goes near the sun, new moon, it loses its power. It loses its illumination. When it's furthest from the sun, it becomes in its power again. But when we have a lunar eclipse, the moon is furthest from the sun, but it lines up without the 5%, what I've called flat Earth nodes. You have nodes in the ball Earth model. I've explained what I've called flat Earth nodes. And when these line up, you have like a astrological aspect between the sun and the moon. And I believe that on a lunar eclipse, the moon is self-de-illuminating, pulsing red, and then self-illuminating again. And this sounds crazy off the bat, but the book presents a lot of weight behind this.
Can you explain the red?
It was possibly a sun once, and it's pulsing. It's got that alignment to the sun. It's pulsing red. It's like it's kick-starting. Charging, pulsing, flashing. The labels are hard. We've also seen in ancient myth, and even quite recently, there's been talk of eyewitness accounts of the sun, our actual sun, going red, the same color as the moon on a lunar eclipse. And this is presented in the book as well, with all the sources, all the source materials listed.
So again, you have to ask the question, why now?
It's like what I said earlier. It could be they're actually drip feeding us. They're drip feeding us, and they want this to come out now. Or people have picked up on it and they're running with it, and they're like, wow, we need to get some people in there and psyop it and steer it. There's something going on. I mean, last week there was people falling out with everyone. It was like that scene off Reservoir Dogs where everyone's pointing a gun at each other. It was craziness. You're an agent. Oh, you're an agent. But you get this.
I mean, everybody with the dome, who believe in the dome, I think everybody who doesn't is a shill. Then you've got the concave guys, they're all shills. I mean, it's not. I mean,
but there's a lot of young males who are new to conspiracy, should we say, and they're in fresh. They haven't been studying for years and years on other conspiracies. They've just come in and they're fresh and they're young. So it's new. There's a lot of new people. So it's kind of like, you suck. No, you're rubbish. It's like some of this going on.
So we've actually got a new movie, is that right, Jeff, called Under the Dome? and the cast is trying to figure out what pink stars falling from the sky.
Is this the Stephen King
Steven
HBO
Spielberg.
series? Steven Spielberg, yeah. They're putting stuff out in Hollywood a lot. Like, you can look at The Hunger Games, you can look at Dark City, The Truman Show, Under the Dome. What's the other one? 400. So they're putting this out through Hollywood. So they're always a few steps ahead of us. We're just like shooting in the dark a little bit.
I'm wondering whether, because the 26,000 year cycle is also repetitive, no matter where you go and how far back you go. Whether these ages, these smaller cycles, these sun cycles, fit into the 26,000 year cycle, because the next sun is supposed to be, or the next cycle, which we call in some cultures they call the sun, is supposed to be, utopia, the golden age.
Yeah, same with the Yugas. I think we're in a bad one now, aren't we? In the Yugas, and we're supposed to come out into like a better one.
Exactly, the next Yuga. Now there's a guy called, it's a website called The Ruiner, who David Wilcock's been talking to, and he says that we were under a contract, essentially, or accepted a contract, entered into a contract with the Dracos, and that contract was to last for 26,000 years, and then it was up a couple of hundred years ago, and that they are in the process of actually leaving. Now, I'm purely playing with concepts and theories.
Yeah.
Right?
I got some question marks over David Wilcock because he's made like 8,000 predictions and none of them came true.
Yeah, no, me too. So I'm not necessarily going off David. I'm more inclined to go off Bradley Love, who's also spoken to him, and giving this guy some credence. But just putting it out there as a sort of embrace everything and see if it fits in with anything else, right? So
sure, I know someone with quite a dark view, quite a pessimistic view, where he believes it's like a mechanical machine we're in, and every cycle the mechanism changes, and loads of souls get harvested. You know, and he believes we're in some sort of dome, locked in like a prison. He's got a very pessimistic, dark view on it. That it's like
Wilcock?
Sorry?
Wilcock, you talking about?
No, it's just someone who stays offline, stays in the shadows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering if, having been in an arrangement with whoever or whatever for a 26,000 year period, that they may well have been resetting on a regular basis in order to maintain control. But if they're leaving, then that could fit into, okay, we may well be on the verge of the next era, and it won't be the cataclysmic cycle that we've seen in the past. I mean, the same cultures that talk about these cyclic cataclysms and the way things have gone in the past also have, as part of their myth and legend, a very positive story embedded for the future. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not.
Yeah. It could be like a clean slate, but again, we're in the realms of conjecture. We're just speculating. And the one thing that draws people to flat Earth, because it's really great for the imagination. I mean, you take your imagination to the gym. Once the people I know have come on board with the flat Earth and they've gone through the washing machine of research and they've actually gone, wow, it's flat. They then open up their imaginations, and it's a beautiful place to be. It's really vivid and it's rich for the imagination. It's like taking your imagination to the gym, premier gym membership for the imagination.
So there really is no reservation for you. You are a born-again flat earther, as this is your new worldview.
I try and stay away from like fixed labels too much, but yeah, I believe the Earth is flat. Yeah, and I believe one of my videos helps prove that. I did a video called "Flat Earth Simplified, Summarized, and Theorized," where I put a few things together.
Oh, it's a brilliant video. Well done.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's good if there's any listeners who don't know much about flat Earth. It can help people who are looking. It's like these are the main things, the main concepts. Why is the ball Earth a bit of a problem? Yeah.
Well, you said earlier that there's like 200 subjects embedded in the whole flat Earth conversation.
Yeah, pretty much.
Was there one in particular that grabbed you?
I think the one that grabs everyone is curvature and horizon, because people are sending up amateur rockets to 120,000 feet and filming it. They're putting an iPhone on it, and everything looks flat. And when you look at the ball Earth dimensions and the spherical trigonometry, there should be curvature. I mean, even just if you can see 40 miles of ocean or horizon, you should be able to see a bit of curvature. When you're on a plane, the horizon's level with the wing. It shouldn't be level with the wing. So what happens is when things are going up higher altitude, the horizon's rising with the eye, and it shouldn't do that. So the things where people normally go are they go to NASA, they debunk NASA, they go to curvature, they go to horizon, and they go to Antarctica. These are like the big four, really.
So how do you? I mean, people come up the conversation and the argument I get all the time is, but everywhere in nature, spheres form. Spheres are everywhere.
Yeah.
I had then the idea that, but I guess they're also looking at space exists the way we've been presented to, and that a flat Earth goes against the whole concept.
But if it's a ball, it has to act like a ball, and it doesn't act like a ball. Here's a big question. It's like, why have NASA, they've been going to space since the 1950s, 60s, why have they never taken a video of the Earth spinning? Why are all their photos like Photoshopped with bright blue ocean? And it's all, people are tearing these apart. People are doing things in Photoshop and seeing that things have been cropped, things have been moved, clouds have been copied and pasted. I mean, you can really go. I did some articles about NASA, about their trip to Mars, about their New Horizons project to Pluto. I think they arrive at Pluto next week, they say. It's all CGI, pantomime nonsense. I mean, for me, I haven't seen enough evidence to suggest space exists, and I don't think any human's been above 100 kilometers up. I've not seen enough evidence.
No, there really isn't any. I don't think either. I'm just going to have a look at comments in the chat room. I've had a dream vision of what I felt was from inner Earth. So there's another thing that it brings up is the whole hollow and inner Earth conversation. I was sitting on something that looked and felt like a crystal disc with what would look like a dome above me. Below the disc was a large crystal like a mountain or crystal city, but that had a dome also. So in whole, it still seemed like a sphere that I was inside, with some like a black film that rolled up like shades. Just had to roll it up to see out the grid or matrix. The disc would look flat from the top or bottom.
Yeah, well,
because there's a lot of myth about the egg and
this girl seeing the mountain in the middle is quite interesting. Eric DeVay did a video about Mount Meru. I would point this person towards that. It talks about a mountain in the middle of the North Pole. It goes back to ancient myth again. Something I'm not fully on board with, but it's an interesting concept. Because you can't get to the North Pole. I mean, if you phone them up and you say, I've got some nice boots, I've got a nice scarf, I'm going to come to the North Pole, they don't let you. Same with Antarctica.
All the stories that I'd read, at least, about going to inner Earth or going to what's it called? Oh, I've gone blank. The names of the places. We've got names of places inside the planet. They're all done through the North Pole, not the South Pole. So, to me, the flat Earth model doesn't eliminate a flat, an inner Earth or a hollow plane.
It's massive conjecture. It's a wild leap, isn't it, for us to say, oh, at the North Pole there's a hole and there's other people living there or other beings. I'm more inclined to think at the North Pole is where the electromagnetics are coming out of, because in the model, North is at the middle and the South's all around the outside. So maybe like a torus where all the electromagnetics are their base, their headquarters, should we say, is the North Pole.
Yeah, the flat Earth doesn't actually. I had a vision myself about the flat Earth with the torus and how it all still worked perfectly. But people like Nassim Harriman.
Yeah.
He's a scientist, a physicist who is embraced by the alternative community.
Someone needs to talk to him. So I'm well aware of his work from years ago. But what you find
if someone knows in his position, if somebody in his position knows this, they're not going to be public about it, I wouldn't imagine. But if there is somebody in his position who could know this, to me, it would be him.
Yeah, I mean, but I know people who've got in touch with people like Graham Hancock. I mean, Max Igan was private messaging me, calling me a CIA operative. I mean, there are people in the truth movement, for want of better words, who have been approached and they won't touch it. They won't even touch it. And that's kind of weird. These are people that stand up and do lectures and say, oh, we need to be open to information. We need to look at things. And there's a whole list of these big, heavyweight truthers. They won't touch it. And that's kind of strange. And they should spend a day on it, have a look at it. But there's a lot of people who won't touch it.
I hung out with Max a couple of months ago at his place, and it was like the subject is that we agree not to even discuss.
Yeah, he was ratty.
Sorry?
He got a bit ratty with a couple of people. He got a bit annoyed.
Yeah, It was like, okay, I'm not even going to go there with you, Max. Let's just agree to disagree on this one and we'll move on.
I mean, someone like Graham Hancock or Nassim Harriman for sure would get, hundreds of thousands more people involved very quickly.
Oh, absolutely. Because I've had a couple of conversations where people have used Nassim's work to disprove, or in an attempt to disprove a flat Earth model, that he does this spiral through space model, and
that actually helps prove flat Earth because of Polaris. We can take the same star trails photos. So that picture Nassim does of everything spiraling, you wouldn't be able to take the same star trails picture 6 months later when you were 30 million miles the other side of the sun. But sorry, carry on.
No, it's good. Thank you. Gave me a comeback.
But with people like Nassim Harriman and Graham Hancock and these other people, they've sold, they're making a lot of money. They've got a lot of stature and respect. These people aren't really going to stand up and say, oh, my fans or my followers, I was wrong the past 10 years and this is what I'm into now.
No.
The male ego it's a kind of fierce thing sometimes. It can be quite rigid.
They would have to be, in my opinion, allowed to do it too, even if they do know privately. Because, Nassim's come up against it, as far as I know, a couple of times. There's been attempts on his life, from what I've heard. So I don't think he'd be doing anything to invite that kind of behaviour. Yeah,
I think, more than ever, we need to be careful of who in the truth movement's like really, really, really popular and getting like massive hits, because this is it raises questions for me. Who's the big cult personality, popular guy? All of a sudden, I get a bit, worried.
Well, I'm safe in that case. Wow. Because this subject does blow open so many things. Like GPS is another one that comes up.
Yeah.
But there's been a few people who are inside that industry who have admitted that GPS is totally ground-based. It's got nothing to do with satellite.
I had an email off an old friend today saying, "Oh, you're talking rubbish. GPS exists." I'm like, yeah, it exists, but it's land-based triangulation. It's a US military project. Yes,
Yeah,
I've seen
doesn't
nothing.
prove the satellites.
No, people say, "Oh, look, I can see a satellite in the sky," but they're the size of a car and they're 200-300 miles away. Your eyes aren't that good enough. The human eye's vanishing point is not that far for something that small. What you're seeing is high altitude drones. They're not 300 miles away satellites in space. And people just believe everything they're told. It's just a bit crazy.
Yeah, but there's an app for that. You got to believe
it. Satellite tracker or something, probably.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, has this then made you go back and revisit?
Loads of things.
Loads of things, yeah.
Yeah, because I like astrology and I've studied astrology, so I had to really go back and I was like, oh, what does it do with that? Yeah, you have to reevaluate so much. It's like no one can really be told about the flat earth. No one can really, you've got to do your own research. Every person has to do their own research and come to their own conclusions. It's sort of like an inner journey. No one can really be told by another person. It's an individual thing. But the information's there.
The mental picture. I want to get this concept. So you've got, of your concept of it at least, you've got the flat landmass.
Yeah.
There's a blue layer of atmosphere that we do seem to pass. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very thin. It's only 30 kilometers thick, really.
And how far up?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. It was probably in my Flat Earth video. Probably 20 to 40 kilometers up, I'd say, at a guess. But I do have the information if someone wants to email me.
It's not that far up.
Not too far up, no. It's below 100,000 feet for sure.
And then we've got fixed stars.
Well, above the blue sky, you've then got the sun and the moon.
Yeah.
3,000 miles up. You've got then in my model, you've got the wandering stars, which people call planets. And then above that, you've got the stars. The reasoning for that is you have things like Venus and Mercury transits. So Venus passes in front of the sun every 250 something years. And Mercury also passes in front of the sun. But it's something we can't see with our eye. We can see the Venus transit. So this makes Venus and Mercury very small. So if the sun's 30 miles wide, which it is in the Flat Earth model, 33 miles wide, then Venus is small. It's like half a mile. It's like half a mile wide. And NASA sends these pictures of this big planet and all these. This is all bullshit. This is all rubbish.
So you've got the sun and the moon are on this. The way I see it, it was like they pass, they do this.
The sun catches it up once every 29 days or so, yeah. The sun's going a bit faster.
But they cross this way as well. Am I doing this properly?
No, but the thing is, Lisa, you're upside down because of our technical thing earlier, so it's quite hard for me to diagnose because you're upside down to me.
Oh, yeah, of course.
You remember?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot, sorry. So, you've got the fixed stars, you've got the wandering stars, which is what we call the planets.
Yeah.
And this would all be, if there is a dome or a ceiling or a barrier of some description within it.
Yeah, or the stars could be on the ceiling. So they're either within or hanging off or attached to the ceiling.
Yeah, I never did buy the whole it's all a projection business.
Well, it's not, is it? Because the stars feed us energy within astrology, and the moon, people say the moon's an illusion, it's a projection. Well, the moon affects so many things. Like if you
It does
do
have
like,
an effect, yeah.
it affects everyone. So a projection illusion can't really do that.
No.
It's more of a leap, isn't it? Let's say.
And projected from where? By who?
This is just wild conjecture. It's just wild conjecture.
Yeah, you can't negate the effect that the moon does have. And the other thing is tides.
Yeah.
This
is covered in the moon book.
So much sense when you look at it on a flat model. Currents, temperatures, seasons, tides.
It's all covered.
It looks quite neat and tidy on a flat model.
There are so many. There's a
go into a little bit about the tides.
Yeah, I mean, let's just rewind a little bit. There's a woman called Ashley, and she's basically flattening pictures, maps of the Earth. She's flattening them. Everything's looking a lot better. You still there, Lisa?
I'm still here. I'm just moving. I didn't want to make you dizzy.
Okay, great. So if you look at things like flight routes or electromagnetics or sea temperatures or solar eclipse viewing areas or lunar eclipse viewing areas, all of these things look much more cleaner on a flat Earth model. And with tides, it does seem to be that it's a mix of sea temperature, electromagnetics, and the sun and the moon. When the sun and the moon are closer together, near new moon, you get different acts on the tides as when they're far apart. So it's like a mix between the sun and the moon creating the tides. Also, this is highly probably electric because giant lakes do not do anything. They don't have tides, but salt water has some ionization in it. Therefore, it can hold some electric charge electromagnetically. And this is something I've gone into in the moon book.
That was actually a big aha for me when I read that in your book. Oh, of course, like the whole freshwater versus saltwater, and the salt content and how that how that can be affected. And what did you say before? Matt Powland, he says that when he was introduced to all of this, that it was explained to him that everything can be explained through temperature. It's all a result of temperature and atmosphere. Everything from gravity to tides to the movement of.
Yeah, it's highly possible. I mean, this is one for the ball.
Bodies, everything.
One for the ball earthers is when the sun comes up in the morning, it's not very hot. And then when the sun's right above you, it's hotter. And then when it's further away in the early evening, it's not that hot. And people think the sun's 93 million miles away. Well, it's going to have that much change in temperature at 93 million miles away. So we're just talking there about, if the ball's a sphere, we're talking about 100, 300 miles away. You go from England to Spain, the temperature changes massively. This doesn't really add up with the sun that's 93 million miles away.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
I agree. It immediately answered so many of those questions that you have growing up or through observation, and you just, I guess, we become accustomed to just going, oh well, it's over my head. I don't understand them. I don't understand how that all works, and we write it off. We write off our own observations, our own experiences, our own inner knowings, because it looks all too complicated.
And also the programming goes in at a young age, between say 5 and 10 at school, and the subconscious is wide open at that age. So the images go in, the mind control goes in at a very young age. It stays with you.
And the big question for me when I started really looking into all of this was Antarctica.
Yeah.
That hiding whatever's going on there may well be the only reason for even introducing a globe model.
Yeah.
They're clearly lying. They're clearly hiding something. But what? I mean, is it just extra land?
This is the big question. There was one guy who said 20, 30 years ago, was it Admiral Byrd or something? I forget his first name.
Yeah.
He said he was on TV in the 70s, I think. And he said there was loads of fossils there, loads of resources. But it does seem like there's a massive black ops thing going on there. There's loads of military and loads of science projects there. I actually phoned up Antarctica. I actually phoned them up. Hello, is that Antarctica? Yeah. And I said, this is like the treaty they have, and the tourists. It's a big pyramid system, and there's a tourist route. And I was like, okay, me and my mates have got loads of money. We don't, actually, but I said this. I said, we're absolutely minted, and we've got all the kit, we've got all the boats, we've got helicopters, and we're just going to go to the South Pole. Don't worry about us. And I got all these emails. Where's your permit? Fill out these application forms. Who the hell are you? You can't come here. And all you can do in Antarctica is spend like 10,000 euros, go and see some penguins, take a photo of a glacier, and sleep in a cold igloo, and then they kick you off. It's locked down, It's completely locked down.
And they're using the argument of environment. It is a huge argument for why that's the case. I mean, raping, pillaging, destroying the rest of the planet, but this we have to keep pristine.
Yeah, you've got to look after the animals.
Yeah. You got the World Wildlife Fund as a front for actually decimating the population of many animals. And none of it makes sense.
It doesn't make sense. And in my first video, the Flat Earth video, I put a picture of the Antarctica Treaty, the meeting table. This gets kind of funny. Their meeting table is a giant pyramid with a capstone cut off. And the big meeting table's blue with green in the middle. It's like the ice wall around the Earth. It's unbelievable. I just couldn't believe it when I saw it.
Well, the one thing I'm impressed with is that a lot of the people in this discussion, they're not nuts.
There's some
we're talking about some really intelligent people who are asking some really intelligent questions and actually doing the research themselves. They're not relying on others. They're doing
There's some really smart. I've been looking at stuff for like 8-10 years, and there's been some real crazy people in many different conspiracies, shall we say, for want of a better word. But I've seen some really smart people in the Flat Earth groups. Some people doing experiments, people making videos, and they're working as a team, and there's no leader. Well, there are people trying to be leaders, but below that, there's a few thousand people who are really actively doing research and collaborating, saying, oh, that's great, but what about this? Oh, yeah, come and meet me online and we'll do this and talk about that. It's inspiring. It's a good thing.
I'm surrounded by chickens. That's what
you
can hear. Yeah.
Mine are asleep now.
So if one jumps up and pecks me, that's what it'll be.
Mine are asleep.
These guys are wide awake.
It's morning, isn't it? They're going to want their food, aren't they?
Yeah, they're having a little peck now on the ground. Funny. It feels like the beginning of something huge.
This is why it's a dangerous time, because things could get really messed up. Because if the powers that be see that it's going to be something huge, they're going to get in there and they're going to divide and create a leader that they can control.
I can't help but feel that it's happening with their knowledge and consent, and perhaps even their support, because it just got too big too quick.
I give this 35%. I give this 35 to 40% possibility. It's like the Beatles getting really big, in the 60s. It's not possible at that time with the media. This is like pushed, and this does seem like it could be pushed. And why would they do that?
This is my question. Why? I mean,
I don't know.
Is it nothing more than just an avenue to come clean on some of their own?
I don't think they have that level of compassion or They don't
Oh,
care.
it wouldn't be for compassion. I think it's through law. That the whole idea that they have to give consent. They
No,
have to give notice, I should say. That, and at the end of or at cyclic periods, it's like through natural law they have to come clean.
but this would kill it. This would so much would fall down. The schools would fall down. The universities would fall down. People who've paid all that tax to NASA in America, what, $8 billion a year, they'd all say, "Well, I want my money back." I mean, there'd just be absolute chaos. No one would trust the government. I mean, worse than they do now. So many dominoes would start falling, and I really don't think they want this. I think if they are pushing it, it's just for a laugh, because they know that 90% of the people aren't going to buy into it. I mean, you speak to someone in your family or someone down the road about flat Earth, you're going to get absolutely hammered.
I know, I have.
Yeah, you know how it goes. It's horrific.
And the response can be incredibly passionate.
Well, it can be very insulting. It can be. Someone told me on email the other week to fly a fighter jet into my head. I don't know how I'm going to do that while I'm flying it, but it's kind of funny.
Yeah. But even actually the ones who are the most passionate about how absolutely ridiculous this is, to me, are the ones who really got triggered by it, because they're so invested in their own observations. One person argued with me that they look through telescopes, they see the moon, they can see the way that light or other objects reflect and refract from it, that it proves it's a globe.
These people end up in a corner. I've spoken to scientists at length as well, and they ended up sort of shaking and insulting me. They just end up saying one of three words, usually gravity, relativity, or refraction. And then when you put them in a corner on each of those three, they're very old theories. They're like hundreds of years old assumptions and theories. And when you speak to even scientists, they can't really explain gravity, and they can't really explain relativity, and they can't really explain refraction. And then you start putting them in a corner, and their identity's starting to get hurt, and then they start insulting.
Yeah, well, the more I've looked into it, it seems like theories, not facts, but theories have been created to explain other theories.
Yeah.
To explain other theories. So we've got all of this theoretical conjecture placed on top of one another, and it doesn't take a lot to pull the plug out from underneath all of it, and have it all start to fall apart.
People think the Pacific Ocean is like a ball, so the water molecule on the surface is trying to get to the center of the Earth. That's a pretty strong force. And then people believe that a flower can just pop out of the ground. Well, if gravity was that strong to hold all that water in a curve shape, then gravity wouldn't allow a little dainty flower to pop up. So gravity's got loads of errors in it. It's got loads of holes. Also, with a satellite going into space, going into orbit, why doesn't the satellite crash to Earth? Why doesn't it or fly off into space? And I've spoken to scientists about this, and they can't answer it. They just say clever thrusters. And it's just nonsense.
Now, there may well be a really simple globe model explanation for this, but the further you get off the planet, the colder it gets. Right? So
yeah, I'm looking
that simple thing.
Yeah, it does get cold. I mean, you go up in the plane, it gets cold. And this is kind of weird. But yeah. I'm looking at this with someone, and we're not sure about what happens over 100 kilometers. I've said in one of my videos that it goes cold and then goes hot, but I'm still not 100% on this, and it's something I'm going to be looking at again in the near future about temperatures at different altitudes, because we can't really trust what we've been told.
Because in the Matt Powell sort of version, all the heat is generated from underneath.
Yeah, and this is pretty much the electromagnetic theory as well. Also, in my moon book, I talked about the sun, and it's not burning fusion, it's not really burning gas, and it's something else probably, and it's the Earth getting heated up. There's some sort of electromagnetic exchange. That seems much more likely.
Yeah, it does.
Because if you're up at 20,000 feet, it's cold, but if you're at ground level, your face gets really warm in the sun. There's some strange things going on, but this is all new information, and it's new experiments, it's new research.
And it's having to completely, which is not easy, wipe your mind of all preconceived ideas of everything you've learned.
This is hard for people as well. Once you go back to the blank canvas, then you can rebuild. But you have to go to that blank canvas again, and then you look at the stars differently, the myths differently. I'm really interested in the myths and things like this. And you just look at it all completely differently, and then you get some fresh, bright minds in there, and it's interesting to see what people are coming up with. But I like what you said earlier, maybe getting someone like Nassim Haramein or one of these guys, but these guys have probably been got to anyway, and they're like gatekeepers, you know?
Sad, huh? But this is what I like. I mean, all of the people who have come together around this particular subject, you know, it's just everyday intelligent people. It's not. Yeah. We're not looking at institutions to figure this out and give us the answers. You know, people are going out and doing the experiments themselves. It's brilliant.
Yes, it's really good. I mean, it'd be nice to have an astronomer, a really good astronomer, like one of these people, to wake up to the flat Earth. Something like this could really push things along or get us some more information quickly. Because everyone's kind of like amateur scientists. It's like amateur science playset, the Earth.
So back to your own personal journey for a minute. I mean, you've done a lot of medicine work.
Yes.
A lot of fasting and retreats and inner work. Obviously, a lot of research as well into a variety of conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Have you gotten to a point where you've got a personal worldview about not only where we're at, but where we're going?
It depends on the evolutional trajectories. On the current evolutional trajectory, we're heading towards a sort of dystopian electronic control grid, you know? I mean, if you go to the big Western cities, it's quite a horrific experience. Everyone's on the phones, everything's Wi-Fi. People are really in that sort of synthetic culture. I'll go and watch this film that they told me to watch. I'll go and buy this music album they told me to buy. I'll go and wear this dress they told me to buy. There is a lot of mind control going on. So on the current evolutional trajectory, we're heading to sort of, you know, a pretty transhumanized dystopia with like 1% on the outside, sort of living off grid, growing stuff in a more holistic sort of way. But just because this is the current evolutional trajectory doesn't mean it's the one that's going to pass, because there could be an event or a quick awakening or a whole host of different sparks that create a new evolutional trajectory, such as more holistic, more compassionate, people are more emotionally aware. Things can change, but it's just the current trajectory doesn't look too great.
These two trajectories, in my opinion, do seem to be running parallel to one another.
Yes, I agree.
And there does seem to be a point coming
where one's got to go.
One's got to go.
Yeah, it's like two trains heading towards the same point. One's got to go. Yeah, this is what the book Re-Emergence of Man was about. It's a fiction book, and a lot of it's based around this concept. And we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. This is why it's so exciting at the moment.
Well, it does seem to be a minority that would currently object to the transhumanism.
Yeah, it's growing. This minority is growing. It's probably, 10%?
15 is the magic number that I keep hearing.
15%. And then it all sort of monkey syndrome, 100 monkey syndrome. Yeah. I mean, things are going quite quick because the flat Earth thing's gone, like you said at the very start of this, you said the flat Earth thing's exploded. There's apparently like 200,000 videos on YouTube. And the Google Analytics said this month is like an 800% increase in the search for flat Earth, like on Google. I mean, this could be a big one. Yeah, this could be a tipping point.
Well, like yourself, many of the people that I've spoken to that are doing the research came to debunk it.
Yeah.
And couldn't. Got completely turned around.
Yeah.
And there's some really people are approaching it from so many different angles. There's some really interesting commentary coming out of the Christian viewpoint.
Yeah.
And they're asking some really good questions.
I'm really confused, and I said this the other day somewhere, why there's quite a lot of Christians who believe the world's flat and have done for the past 10 or 20 years. I'm confused why they waited for like the conspiracy guys to jump on, and then all the Christians are like, yeah, it's flat. It's like, hang on, why didn't you say something in the past 10 or 20 years? Oh, no, we're waiting for you crazy conspiracy theorists. Kind of weird. But the Bible, ancient scripture, I mean, the ancient scriptures do all say the world's flat. The Quran, the Bible, the Vedic, Buddhism, it's all over the place. Everywhere in the ancient world.
This is a conversation I had the other day, was someone brought up Egypt and the Egyptians and the pyramids. And talking about how much they knew and how brilliant they were when it came to cosmology, building these pyramids in alignment with the stars, and their knowledge of architecture and their building practices, whatever, brilliant. We can't replicate it today. These guys knew what they were doing, and in the building of the pyramids themselves, it all actually apparently measures out the spherical Earth as well. And well, how can you say that about this time and these people having such knowledge, and yet they had it all wrong as to the very land they were standing on? How could they, if they had because they have a belief in a flat Earth as well. They talk. You see the Egyptian.
If you look at the goddess Nuit, she's the sky dome really with the stars.
Exactly. So how could they be so brilliant and so wrong at the same time?
But the pyramids you can match to like 500 things, and one thing you can match.
That was my argument.
You match. They say you can match it to the northern hemisphere, but you've got to do a pi. It's not just it matches. You've got to do a scale and a pi formula on it. Maybe I need to relook at that, because maybe that's just, things like this, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's something they just plopped in to push the full Earth propaganda. I mean, everything needs revisiting.
And maybe we're going to burst out of the bubble totally different than positive or negative choice. Yeah, true. And you can't debunk the truth. Yeah, I mean, with a lot of these ancient cultures, their knowledge of cosmology, their knowledge of how to align their physical artifacts and things on the ground in perfect harmony with the celestial bodies.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I lived in the Maya villages for a while, and the Maya, they studied the stars probably as good, or if not better, than any other culture on the planet. They were studying Venus, transits, and I don't know if anyone knows about the Dresden Codex, they were looking at Venus transits to do with the cataclysm. On the last page of the Dresden Codex is a massive flood. And when Venus passes in front of the sun, which happens every 250 years or so, and they were obsessed with Venus cycles, and they matched it to cataclysm. And no one's really fully deciphered the Dresden Codex, but all we know is they measured Venus massively, they were obsessed with it, and they used it to map cataclysm cycles. Do
you know offhand when the last Venus transit was?
Yeah, it was like a few years ago. It was like 2010 or 2008. I'm happy to be corrected on that, but it was very recent. Yeah.
Didn't coincide with major cataclysm or not? I mean, because it's certainly in the past that seems to be global.
Yeah, I mean, I know someone with a theory that he thinks 2012 something was supposed to happen and it's been delayed with things like chemtrails. And of course, that is a theory, that's wild speculation, but I do know a human being that believes that.
Oh, I know several.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I keep calling them the powers that were, have put in place many things in order to, including CERN even, to
Yeah.
in an attempt to prolong or forestall whatever was supposed to happen in 2012.
Yeah. CERN is a dodgy thing. I haven't looked at it that deeply, but I've had a little look, and they've got Shiva statues there and things, haven't they?
They got all sorts of funky stuff going on. There was a dance that there's been a couple actually that they filmed inside CERN. Yeah. I mean, this again, the speculation as to what that's all about is rife. There's a lot of different theories. It's either
Basically,
trying to open up portals to bring stuff in, or close things off, or close them off to prevent them from coming in, or
yeah.
take your pick.
What they say they're doing, throwing particles at each other. I don't believe
Oh,
this.
that's rubbish. No.
That is nonsense. Yeah.
And to the cost, all these countries paying what they're paying to throw particles together?
No. Yeah, to like try and solve the Big Bang. This is nonsense. They're doing something big. They're doing something big there. Whether it's to do with electromagnetics or the ionosphere, you can speculate for hours. Yeah.
It makes sense to me that it would be, based on everything that we've covered so far in the idea of how the world actually works as an electromagnetic design. That CERN is working on electromagnetics makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And maybe they're delaying something or trying to stop something from happening. It can't be ruled out.
It can't be ruled out.
It's on the table.
There's so much now. Everything's on the table now. Everything's on the table to be re-examined, to be turned upside down.
Yeah.
And potentially rewritten. But this is an amazing, amazing time. There is no question of that. And this awakening that we're seeing, I mean, we've had so many triggers for people. 9/11 was a huge trigger.
Mm.
Now this flat Earth is another trigger for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And they may start questioning this, and yet they end up then going back and looking at 9/11, for example. I mean, everything's a trigger and has a domino effect.
Yeah. One thing the flat Earth thing is doing is creating a lot of division. I know people who've lost friends. I know people whose parents said, not wise, sitting there Sunday dinner. Oh, hi, Mum, the world's flat. I advise against that. There are people whose parents are really worried about them. They're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? So it's creating a massive rift socially and in friend groups. It's like people are going to work and talking about it and everyone's laughing at them. So there's like a whole social thing going on as well, which I find kind of interesting.
I mean, the arrogance of trying to create a complete lie about the very land that we stand on.
Yeah.
That it tells you how programmable we are, because we've believed it over and above our own observations.
We've gone mind controlled over the five senses.
Yeah.
I did an article last year about the nature of conditioning, and we are super malleable. There's like 9 cases of humans who grew up with animals, monkeys or dogs, and there's like a 14-year-old girl in the Ukraine who was on all fours barking at the age of 14. She lived with dogs. And I looked at these as examples of a human growing up with the monkeys. They're like swinging in the trees. So the human is really malleable. So you could probably grab, I think I did a science fiction concept of this, you could grab 100 babies and you could, you wouldn't, it's totally immoral, but I'm just speaking hypothetically, and you could create a utopia, a telepathic sort of utopia, compassionate utopia with these humans. We're super malleable. You know, we could be living in complete utopia very easily, but we're programmed differently. Or we could all be like on all fours barking like dogs. It's like that. We're like sponges as children. Yeah. And we bought it. We bought the ball.
But the ramifications, the result on our psychology. I mean, this was the first question I actually asked myself when I came across this was why.
This is what everyone
what's the payoff? Why would you even want to try and sell this story?
As I said,
what I came to was that what it does on us psychologically, how it takes us out of being, we started off as being the center of the universe, center of God's creation. We were it. Everything revolved around us. We were special. We had purpose. We had meaning.
Yeah, their model creates atheism.
Yes.
So if you're like an ape man on the edge of the galaxy, one of millions of galaxies on a planet, one of millions of planets, you're kind of like a random accident, a random pathetic accident, pointless. And when you die, it all goes black. It really promotes Darwinism and atheism. So maybe this is one avenue. The hiding land, hiding something's another avenue. And of course, the myths in the sky. These are the only three things I can think of. 3 reasons.
Because there are many Christians out there too who are talking about how they're trying to destroy Christianity from within, get it to him. So this could have been part of a very long-term plan to destroy religion in order to, they created it, now they're destroying it in order to present the next thing.
Yeah, it's possible. But then even within Christianity, most Christians think the world's round. And it's like, I said to a couple of them, have you read Genesis? And they're like, no, not really. I'm like, so you've given your soul to a belief system and you haven't read the creation story. They're like, yeah. Well, you should really look at that. That's kind of weird.
It is kind of weird, yes. If you're going to devote yourself to something, you think you'd
know a bit about it. And even Buddhism, like modern Buddhism, the religious Buddhism, they're now very much into science and the sphere. It's like, well, in the old scriptures, there's talk of a flat Earth. They're like, oh no, we know better now. So they're just weird. A lot of these religious people, they're not going to the roots.
Because we're confronted with what we're told is evidence. So how do you take a Bible or any kind of religious text and put that up against a photo from space?
Yeah.
And go.
People are trusting. They believe what they're shown. They believe authority figures. But NASA's like the CIA. It's a government agency. It's no real different to the CIA. It's a federal agency. But people, especially sort of older generation, just believe everything. Why wouldn't you? Like in the 50s, 60s, after the Second World War, comfort, have a nice life, trust what's on the TV, trust everyone. It comes from the heart, trusting people. But they got duped. A lot of people got duped and twisted. But I think the younger people now are much more critical, much more thinking for themselves.
Yeah, we've got a generation of cynics, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's really good. A nightmare to bring up, but good.
Yeah, I'll go along with that. I can concur. I'll be one moment. I just need to chat with our producer.
Cool.
Okay. So, this question of I want to go back completely off topic again. You've done a lot of medicine work with plants.
Some. Depends what you call a lot compared to who.
Well, compared to me, I haven't done any. And it fascinates me And it was a conversation that came up, I think, in an interview I had recently. The idea that this is something we should all do, as opposed to how these things were traditionally used. Because normally in tribal culture, there is one individual, one shaman, one medicine man or woman who would use these plants for the benefit of the tribe.
Of the tribe, yeah.
Right. It wasn't something that everybody participated in. And it was because that person, that individual, had the training to go where these plants took them and come back and stay sane. And yet we're in a period where everybody's sort of, it's cool to go on an ayahuasca journey.
Right.
But is that necessarily the best use of those plants? And should we all be doing it? Should we all be having these experiences?
Not really. I mean, it's better to do other ways, holistic life, meditation, but some people don't have the time. I'm not going to preach. Everyone can do what they want. I don't think people should be using it for fun at all, or going out with their mates. Oh, this is fun. If you're drinking alcohol, like a few days before, this isn't good. If you're eating bad food a few days before, this isn't good. If you're not treating it with respect, this isn't good. So there's loads of things. Or you're going to get kicked. You're going to get your ass kicked.
You ever had a bad trip?
I've had some very dark experiences with the ayahuasca, and had some very light experiences. But it's with the dark, shadowy experiences where you probably transmute the most energy and renew the most and release the most. Because a lot of the spiritual gig is how much people think it's all love and light and huggy bear and granola, but a lot of it's how much fear you can handle and how much you can decondition, how much you can release, how much pain you can go into.
And the benefits are what?
Sorry?
And the benefits are what exactly?
Shedding emotional crud, really. Shedding things from the past. So I believe with the medicine, if used correctly, instead of having lots of reincarnations, you could probably skip a few carnations because you got the lessons with the medicine.
Okay. Cleaned up your karma, so to speak.
Yeah, well, you could probably, with the ayahuasca, you can come out of the body, step up from your life, look down at it, and purge some crap and work out some things and get some very big lessons, which you probably wouldn't get normally for a few more carnations, because you've got to meet that person and go through a toxic relationship, or you've got to do this and that. You can burn a lot of karma, for want of better words. I don't advise it to anyone or not advise it. It's up to each person. It's up to everyone what they do.
No, just wanted your experiences with it.
But if the whole world took something tonight, every human would have a very different world tomorrow. Maybe something where nothing gets done, but maybe the next day is a different world.
Yeah, cool. There's so much. I really want to recommend everybody go and have a look at your website. It's wakey.com. I will put the URL in the chat room for people, because there's a lot on there to read. This is one man who's shared his journey very, very nicely in book and video form. And, there's so many of us out there now who are sharing our journeys and sharing our stories. And it's every time somebody does it, it helps so many people. We're not alone in this. We may be 15%, but when 15% is enough to be questioning. It does have a cumulative effect on the collective consciousness, in my opinion. This conversation is not going to go away, this flat earth one.
No, it's not going to go away. It's going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah. And more is going to be exposed as a result of it.
I know I know of some groups, and they meet up, and they group of a few people, and they hack into a NASA web. They don't hack. They go to like a NASA Facebook group, and they just where there's like 30,000 people saying, "Wow, what a great picture, NASA!" And people are in there bombing them with "This is bullshit." And then the next day they'll pick another target, and they'll like cracker ninjas, and they're just zooping around the net,
Well,
like
you got to look. I mean,
hijacking things.
we're presented with these images and we're told, oh, isn't it, the macro and the micro are so similar because this particular image of this galaxy looks just like a brain neuron.
Yes, it's all nonsense.
But chances are it is. Chances are that's exactly what it's a photo of.
Okay, yeah, something small and yeah. Because I was
and the iris of an eye, or
I'm starting to look at stars in the near future, and if you look at anyone listening, look at Sirius through a high-powered telescope, and there's a few things on YouTube. This isn't burning gas. This is like a fractal, crystalline, high-intelligence, geometric thing. And if we get to that blank canvas you were talking about, where we decondition all this nonsense we've been told about the Ball Earth and NASA, we can start looking at the stars really fresh. Because people have got some really smart ideas about air and water creating sparks of light. I think it's called sololuminescence. There's this guy with water. He's doing things with water and creating these like mini stars in water. So there's a lot of theories going around about stars. This is all very new stuff. But yeah, if you look at Sirius or any of the other stars through a high-powered telescope and you just go with your senses, what are you seeing and what are you feeling? Very interesting.
Well, that ties in with some of the ancient depictions of the flat Earth model, doesn't it? Where there are waters above and waters below. So if there is in fact a layer of water above.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. So this is something I'm going to be hopefully looking at in the near future. Also, there's a guy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've forgotten his name. He was an explorer, like a deep sea diver, a submarine guy. It's on YouTube somewhere. If someone emails me, I'll dig it out somewhere. And he goes very deep in a submarine, and he's underwater, and he finds a lake, and he's like,
and he was killed shortly after.
He was killed shortly after, and he found this lake underwater. He's like, well, I'm in water. What's the lake doing there? And he went to go down. He bounced off. And he spoke about it on TV, and then, he just died. He ate a peanut or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was actually rimmed with mussels. Mussels were stuck to the rim of this what looked like an underwater reef lake.
Yeah.
And the environment was completely different.
Yeah, he bounced off. So the waters below things possible, the waters above things possible. Because when we talk about the myths of the ancient floods, they don't talk about a lot of rain. They talk about torrents of water.
So it's as if that dark rift opened up and the water came in. This is the sun.
Some of the myths say this, yeah. But then some of the myths say from the firmament, from just the dome, it just gushed in. But in my second video, the dome video, I did a video called something crazy, like the dome, the dark rift, myth and cataclysm. I put on that video quite near the start about 10 pictures of a Genesis stroke Quranic look at the dome, the firmament. And there's different diagrams there that people might find quite interesting. Because some of them have floodgates and the water's above, the water's below. So I included 10, 15 of these pictures in my dome video.
There was reference to windows as well.
In the video, Lisa?
I'm trying to think if it was in your video. I'm sure it was. Wasn't there references to windows in the dome?
I was talking about Libyan glass, and I didn't talk about windows. I talked about some people think at 100 kilometers there's a layer of glass. I ruled this out because of meteorites, because if meteorites come down, you'd find loads of glass there. But it does seem there is a layer of density at 100 kilometers up, because the Northern Lights are above 100 kilometers. The elves are above 100 kilometers. They're massive plasma halos, and the sprites are below 100 kilometers. And there's like a layer of density. There's a layer of something going on at 100 kilometers. And I had a theory that the space shuttle, with its carbon nose and its carbon black wings, was like a battering ram to try and pierce through, shall we say. I'm not saying it's something material and thick. I'm saying a layer of density.
Mm-hmm.
But again,
something that we probably haven't penetrated yet.
I've seen no evidence to suggest humans have gone above 100 kilometers. None at all. And I'm open to anyone sending me a picture of a satellite or a spacecraft, because all the ones I've seen so far are nonsense.
Well, thank you. This has been awesome.
Yeah, it's been super awesome.
It's always good to have a chat with on this subject. I love it, and just because it is so inclusive of so many other things.
It links to everything. It links to it so much. It links to our own inner journey. It links to the bankers, the people behind the system. It links to everything. It links to our day-to-day walk down the road because we look up at the sun. It links to everything. It's the big one, I think. This is a big one. This is a monster.
It is, and again, I keep coming back to why now. If I could figure that out.
But there's something. Maybe it's I don't like the word spiritual, but I was thinking about something to do with flat Earth, and then someone sent me an email and said the exact words that I was thinking. So there's another angle on this, that something's coming through. And there's these lads I see online, these American lads, and they're all really good for science and electromagnetics, and they've just gelled as like friends. I think they live in different parts of America. And they've just gelled, and they're really bouncing off each other, and they're all thinking the same sort of thing. It's like, wow, it's like you guys have known each other for years and just like sprung together online. It's like maybe there's something coming through, some sort of download. I don't know what words to use, really.
Yeah, it feels like that.
It's possible. Yeah. It's either that or they're pushing it out. But I'd be wary. If I was new to Flat Earth and I went online and typed in Flat Earth, I wouldn't go to the first few sites that pop up. I don't know where mine is. I don't really care. But what I'm saying is to anyone watching it, because the first few, top of the Google, top of the YouTube, who's putting them there? So just be a bit careful.
Let's do a search while I'm sitting here. I'm going to do a search. Google.
But this will be off your profile, won't it, of what you've searched before?
Probably.
Because if someone's new and fresh, it'll be the first time they've done it.
Well, it's a Wikipedia page that comes up for me. and then the Flat Earth Society.
This is a key. This is something Eric's gone into debate. The Flat Earth Society is controlled opposition. So what you'll find when you type in Flat Earth, you'll get pushed to the Flat Earth Society, which have some really crazy theories and a lot of agents in there. To anyone listening, I'd say stay well away from the Flat Earth Society.
Well, the next two are the Lockhaven University. IHUB.
Wow, never heard of them.
Lockhaven University of Pennsylvania.
Proving that it's nonsense.
The Flat Earth Society again. And then we get to a couple of videos. Matt Powan's there. Rational Wiki. So, yeah, you don't make the front page, so I guess that's a good sign.
It's a good sign.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody in the chat room for joining us live. Appreciate that. Go and check out the wakey.com site. There's loads of books, loads of articles, videos. Some great information. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
And thanks for getting the world right side up.
I'm completely balancing on the bag of banana here. Awesome. I can see you properly now.
No, you're upside down. Yeah.
When you were doing any arm, that was really cool.
Thank you. We'll talk soon, and I'd like to have you on one of our regular radio shows too. if you can make it.
Cool. Let's do it. Yeah, we seem to be on a similar page. We seem to be on a similar page.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Are you going to put this online? That just went out live. Are you going to put it online? Like, is there going to be like a way of people rewatching it?
Yeah, there'll be an archive. I will send you the link to it as soon as it's online. It'll be a few days.
Right, you're an angel.
Okay. Talk to you soon.
Okay,
And thank you again, everybody.